got to look at our children, we've got to cheer them on, and we've got to know that we can do better. Because if we don't, we know what will happen.
The primary purpose of this conference is to reach out to those organizations that provide the necessary services to youth and also families to try to save the lives of the students and the youth out there in the community that we see being lost daily.
The simple fact that they're having this conference and passing this information on and being proactive is a benefit for everyone.
We would like to bring a level of awareness to the community at large so that they approach the issue of violence in a realistic way.
We're losing a lot of young people due to senseless violence. And if we can invoke thought on just that next step that's going to take place in their life and when they're engaged in a situation of confrontation, when they're engaged in a situation where it comes down to, you know, do I make a decision that might take my life or save another life? So it's one of those things where we want to provoke that thought and just keep this conversation going, not just now, not just the rest of the year, but for years to come. You know, to let them see that they have a choice in their life.
Recently, there was a drive-by. Two other gangs was near the park. It was close to a park. Children was playing, and out of nowhere, a car pulled up, and all of a sudden we hear gunshots.
They throwing their lives away with this stuff. And that's why, like I tell my friends, like, stay away from the gangs. It's nothing, all it brings is dead buddies and bad news.
I see a lot of bullying. I see a lot of gang violence with selling drugs.
Well, around my community, it has things to do with drugs and shooting and fights all the time.
You know, I hear about a lot of friends are fighting at school, people getting killed a lot.
It makes me feel like, what is the world coming to? Like, because basically, it's mostly like little kids getting killed, and it makes me feel sad, and it's like all these parents losing their kids and stuff.
Children of today are seeing so much violence in their everyday life. And one of the biggest problems with children involved with violence is the repetition of the act.
Youth violence is a learned behavior. It is not something that we are born with. You have first of all to look at the environment where the child or the young person is growing in. If there is violence in the home, the child will learn violence. If there is no other, if the parents within the home environment don't have the ability to solve problems and they solve problems through fights, the kids start picking up that behavior. They start learning that this is how you solve problems.
This conference is a conference that really helps young people see the next level and help them understand why it's important to make changes and why it's important to stay the course if they're on a positive track. And if they're not, why it's important to turn and change.
The conference is very timely in terms of the times that we live in. I think that it is a very appropriate undertaking in the empowerment process, not just with the professionals who are working with the youth, but also too with the children as well as their parents.
The battlefront when it comes to our children really is everywhere. And there's no place to run. And there's no place to hide. Which means that we've got to step up. We've got to be fully present. We've got to be focused, intentional. Because the reality is that we don't get another chance to get it right for this generation of children while they are still our children. And so our role is that we've got to guarantee safe passage from where they are through adulthood.
The kids, they don't get enough parenting, you know. They go to their friends and people outside in the world, the street, to get that parenting and get that love that they're trying to find. But sometimes that love isn't always right.
Nowadays, in our generation, we don't have a lot of fathers at home. And most people would say, oh, I live with my mom or I live with my grandmother. You have these single parent households. You don't have like the father to be there to really discipline.
When you look look at family structure, when you look at the structure of the community, when you look at the structure of the neighborhoods, we don't engage our young people as though we truly care about them. And somebody can tell when you care because it's going to be based on the things that we provide for them. And I don't believe we have provided for our young people as we should.
If grown folks don't understand what we go through, then they're not gonna know how to help us. And if you got your mouth shut and you know you've been out there, you've been there, done that, and you're not giving them what's going on, then they stay ignorant on how to help you. You can't come to me and say, hey, Brother Oscar, man, I need your help. And I'm like, okay, what's up? Man, my knee hurt. But, so you got me, you at the doctor, they working on your knee, doing all kind of x-rays, but really your head hurt. And you ain't telling me what's real. So in other words, we gotta keep 100 with the grown folks so they understand what we really need as young people. That's how you stop a lot of the madness from going down. It's in your conversation.
We need to spend the time and engage them, which is why statistically, if you sit down and have a meal with your child 3 times a week, you reduce the likelihood that this child will die from a violent act by 40%. It's just a matter of engagement.
All of our children are at risk by virtue of the tenor of the times. No child is exempt. Whether they are 4.0 on the honor roll, whether they've been struggling, whether they are varsity football, whether they're in the drama club, there are just so many pressures on our children that, if we're honest, are more intense than when we were children, because the world is more complicated now.
One of the things we constantly talk about in our community is a healthy community. That cannot happen until the children are taught to do things differently. The saving of lives, unfortunately, what used to be, brief encounters have now become deaths. We don't fight, we kill.
We could change the violent mindset of these young people by having more positive people in our community and helping out, like at schools, the teachers, and more positive people that are in videos, not violence and talking about drugs and killing.
I think this is a very positive thing that we're doing here. I like that we reach out to not just Gary, I like that we reach out to Hammond and East Chicago.
Ultimately, I think Coffy will help the youth in this community by continuing events like this and actually seeing ways of implementing more just to keep this conversation going.
I believe when a kid is engaged in a positive activity or event, it gives them options and choices in life.
I always think the Coffy event is very beneficial to the community, and I think all those who participate are always enlightened and go home with a notebook full of knowledge and wisdom gained.
It brings together many minds that provide services for young people. It also establishes those persons of the kind of services that they provide and the opportunities for young people to participate.
That's what this conference is about, youth violence. We got to give our kids positive alternatives. Instead of them hanging out after school, they need to be somewhere where they're getting poured into and that we're investing in. There are ways, step by step, that we can rebuild the fabric of our community. It's like children's Legos. You just take a piece here and a piece here and you hook them together and you just keep hooking them together until that foundation is solid. Do what you can, where you can, when you can. And so be ye not discouraged. Run on and see what the end will be. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on and on and on and on and on until the victory's won. Our children are worth the fight. The battlefront is everywhere. And I thank God for you men and women who are not looking for a sheltered rear.